Hi, so today don't mind the mess in back, I'm trying to get a craft room organized, so hopefully that will happen soon. It's just a mess right now. So today I'm talking about the book Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. I am in no way affiliated. I'm not reviewing the book, and this is going to be the first part of a series. I'm going to be talking about how I experienced the book and what I learned from it as I go through it chapter by chapter. Today we will be talking about the pre-intro and introduction. What I'm calling the pre-intro is a small chapter at the beginning of the book in which she talks about what brought her to this book and goals for the book. One thing that draws me to this book is the quote from Theodore Roosevelt that was given during a speech in Paris, France in April of 1910. It's called Citizenship in the Republic. It's also called The Man in the Arena. So she quotes the passage from the book, the most popular passage, and I'm going to go ahead and quote that now. "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again. Because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasm, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, it at least fails while daring greatly." I first heard this quote at a job that I worked at in the 90s, where our leaders gave it to us on little cards. Their way of telling us that we were in the arena, we were getting our butts kicked on a regular basis, and that we mattered, basically. Although at the time I really liked it, I couldn't fully appreciate it for what it was. I was in my 20s, I just couldn't fully appreciate it. Now, the thought that this is vulnerability, that that part of the speech talks about vulnerability and what vulnerability is, as Brene Brown says in her book, it does really resonate with me. She writes, quote, "Vulnerability is not knowing victory or defeat. It's understanding the necessity of both. It's engaging. It's being all in." End quote. For so long, I believed that vulnerability was weakness, but it's really not. I think a lot of us have been programmed to believe that. The things we face every day are not optional. As a Gen Xer, I've spent my life trying to be, as she says, perfect and bulletproof. Y'all, I thought I can just work hard, do things like it's supposed to be done, and avoid human connections because they are messy and, hard to do. So it seems reasonable that I can just avoid them, right? Doesn't really work out. It works for a while. For a while you can do that, but after a while it's taken a toll on my mind, body, and soul. And while I've read and listened to this book before, many times before, it's kind of a go-to for me when I'm looking for that something positive, something to uplift me, something to get me back on track. It gives me tools and it gets me back where I need. She tells us that, quote, "We must dare to show up and let ourselves be seen." So hard. It is so hard to really let ourselves be seen, not to hide behind those masks that we create. I've created so many masks, from just being too inapproachable. If I wear this mask, people won't even try to approach me. People will avoid me. People will whatever. Either way, you get criticized. No matter what you do, you get criticism. So do what makes you happy is, where I'm at right now. Anyway, So this whole thing sounds really hard. I mean, it sounds really hard to go through these self-help books. It sounds really hard to do things that are going to improve you, because, you know, not hiding behind these things, it makes life tough, but worth it. So there are some questions that we're going to explore in this book, and these 5 questions I'm quoting directly from the book. This is what she has. We're going to talk about what drives our fear of being vulnerable, how we are protecting ourselves from vulnerability, what price we are paying when we shut down and disengage, and how do we own and engage with vulnerability so we can start transforming the way we live, love, parent, and lead. Y'all, I don't know about you, but those all sound very powerful to me, and something that I feel like I need in my life. I know I'm not looking at the screen a whole lot. I tried to type this out, trying to stick to the script. It's not working out real well. I kind of ad-lib a lot, but we're going to try to stick to it, okay? So I agree with Brene Brown that vulnerability is excruciating. Her therapist says that it's an exquisite emotion. I think it's excruciating. Doing this, just mentioning vulnerability on any platform, on any stage, to anybody, no matter what, is hard. It's tough. It makes me nauseated. It makes my heart race. It makes me feel generally uncomfortable. Just the thought of vulnerability is just not for me. But that's why we're here, right? So knowing that there are things that I can't control, being online and putting this out there, I can't control it. I can't control who responds. I can't control how they respond. I can't control the criticisms that you know are going to come. It's scary. It's a scary thing. But it is something that, although it's scary, I think in the end it'll be worth it. We'll see. I find that, like Brene, I feel most vulnerable when I am in fear and overwhelmed. My reactions to these emotions have not and are not always good things. As a matter of fact, they tend to be not so good. I tend to yell, be sarcastic, disengage. My mouth tends to overrun my ass a lot of the times. I get very quiet, or I'll get very quiet, just kind of withdraw, just won't say anything. That's hard for me, but sometimes it happens when I'm in a position where I don't feel like I can speak up at all. When I know that those consequences are at the forefront, and I've kind of forced myself, I get very quiet. If I get very mad, I cry. Then I get more mad because I'm crying, and I feel like that shows weakness, so I get mad because I'm crying, and then I cry more. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous, y'all. It's all very dramatic. I have habits I learned from my family. Brene talks about being a 5th generation Texan with a motto of lock and load. Though I'm not from Texas, I live here now, but I'm not from here. My family motto would likely be the same if we had one. I'm in a unique position in my family lineup. I am my mom's oldest of 3 biological and 1 bonus child. My father has several older children who I knew as a child, though my younger siblings weren't around very much, if at all. So I'm kind of amongst the youngest, yet the oldest. I'm the youngest of one group and the oldest of another group. And it's kind of very odd. It's kind of a very odd spot to be in. I would like to say that I have taken my role of the oldest child and done good things with it. I haven't. My entire life I've been kind of in and out of the family, gone and lived different places. I haven't always been there, and there's huge age gaps between me and my younger siblings. So there is 6 years between me and my brother, and there is 8 years between him and my sister. So there's 14 years between me and my sister. So there's a huge age gap there. So I was not there to always be a good big sister. My entire life, I've been around in different periods, been around either my younger siblings or my older siblings in various stages. I have a few siblings I have never really even been around a whole lot, but that's a whole nother story. That's another day. I get back on track here. What I know is that this has always been my way of keeping a safe distance, is not getting real close to any of them up until I got a little bit older. Not giving too much of myself to even the people I love the most. Then my children came along and I poured everything into them. Even with them though, I can relate to the Brene Brown premise of keep everything at a distance and always have an exit strategy. So that was a quote from the book. I have also had a desire to help people even as a teenager. Reports I did were often on people who needed help in some way. I've worked various jobs that have fulfilled this. My current career being a paramedic, this is one of those jobs that allows you to help people without spending so much time with the people we help that we get attached. It is also the one that allows some close friendships with ready-made exit strategy. We work too much. Sorry, I said that wrong. We work too much to really develop true connections. So in EMS, you may have a partner that you work with a lot and really connect with them, but it seems like they kind of come and go, and people in EMS tend to work a lot of hours. So those true connections sometimes are difficult because you're exhausted. As a researcher, Brene Brown has found that connection, quote, connection is why we're here. We are hardwired to connect with others. It's what gives us purpose and meaning to our lives, and without it, there is suffering. Really, end quote. I'm not disagreeing. I am not disagreeing with her. I'm saying this is hard. Having connections with people is hard for me. It's something that I struggle with, and I'm like, but do I really? And the answer is yeah, probably I really do. I need to have connections. Now, do I need to connect with everybody? Do I need to have a large group of people that I connect with? No. Y'all, this hair is ridiculous. But connection is important. So she wanted to develop research that explained the anatomy of connection. Quote, through research, I've got quotations that I'm not sure that they're supposed to be there. So through her research, she became a shame and empathy researcher. So through the things that she learned and just through natural selection, that's just kind of where she went. So she found that we, quote, for real this time, cultivate resilience in the face, believing we are stand by, let me find this quote. Okay, what it says is that she wants to talk about how we cultivate resilience in the face of believing that we are not enough. and that we're not worthy of love and belonging. Y'all, I can totally relate to that. I can totally relate to that feeling of not enough and that we're not worthy, and that I'm not worthy of love and belonging. It's something that I've struggled with for a long time. So that is a large part of avoidance, in my own belief, avoidance in relationships. Brene Brown calls the people who are most resilient to shame and believe in their worthiness as the wholehearted. She has also created a guidepost for wholehearted living. I would love to live wholeheartedly. However, I'm currently about 2 out of 10 on this list that she has in the book, which is what Brene Brown says she was at the time when she wrote the book. Brene Brown had a, quote, spiritual awakening, unquote. After having that realization that she was only 2 out of 10 out of these guideposts that she had, that she got from her research. What we will go through in the book is her realization and information she gathered from her research, the 5 most important themes that emerged from her data. An idea that she has in the book to get to wholehearted living requires another quote. I will not read the fundamental ideas, but this is something that is important to read. And it is, wholehearted living is about engaging in our lives from a place of worthiness. It means cultivating the courage, compassion, and connection to wake up in the morning and think, no matter what gets done and how much I left undone, I am enough. It's going to bed at night thinking, yes, I am imperfect and vulnerable and sometimes afraid, but that doesn't change the truth that I am also brave and worthy of love and belonging. Y'all, I love that. I think that's something we all need to. We all need to learn to live a more wholehearted lives for our own selves, for our own well-being. And it's definitely something that I need. So that really means a lot to me. Another thing that really resonates with me in this book is how it can be helpful to anybody in all walks of life. I have had many experiences in my profession. Some are fabulous. I've worked with some fabulous people. I've had some great experiences. Some not so much. There are things I know I contributed to. There are things that I have not done the best, that I really needed to work on, that I really struggled with. And there are things that I learned from people that was just a learning. It was things that I've brought from background. It's things that it's just how it was, where I was at, and that just kind of went with the flow. One thing that screams at me in this book, and I think many can relate, are these 2 quotes. One is going to be for the workplace, and one is going to be for our home lives as adults, as parents, as human beings. So the first, like I said, is about work life. And it says, when shame becomes a management style, engagement dies. When failure is not an option, we can forget about learning, creativity, and innovation. Unquote. So I think I know in my background that I've worked jobs where shame was a management style. I think in EMS, largely it was a huge part of how things were done. Not everywhere. I've contributed to that same management style, and I got to a point where I knew I needed to do better. And then the other quote is, when it comes to parenting, the practice of framing mothers and fathers as good or bad is both rampant and corrosive. It turns parenting into a shame minefield, end quote. People do this all the time. People are critical of parents. Y'all, We need to quit being so critical of each other. And we need to encourage, as long as people are doing the right thing. And I'm not meaning the right thing as we're going to sit there and judge them. I mean, they're not doing anything to intentionally hurt their children or intentionally damage their children. And that can also be relative. If you feel that a child's in danger, obviously you kind of need to step in, but that doesn't always mean that they're a bad parent. So they may have just made a bad decision in that moment. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, on the flip side of that, I think we have gotten into this culture where people don't want to take feedback. They think that they're being criticized, judged, because that's how most people come at them. That's how we're kind of programmed at this point, is just be reactive to anybody who is saying anything to us. But sometimes people really are trying to help. So we need to learn to give and receive constructive feedback. And by we, I mean me, because trust me, I'm not always the best at it. This is something I need to learn, to not come across as being critical, because it's not my intention, but sometimes that's how I come across. So I've worked EMS for a number of years. I've seen, and in ways contributed to management styles that weren't healthy. I know that. Ironically, I've been criticized for attempting to learn more about leadership through books. And that criticism came from people who criticized my management style. So you can't criticize somebody for doing something wrong, and then when they try to do something better, try to improve those things, criticize them for doing it. Can't have it both ways, people. I mean, you can ask for it both ways, you're not going to get it. There are people who just want to criticize no matter what. People make effort to do better for themselves, shouldn't be criticized. So that's where our society tends to just kind of tear people down. As a parent, I learned way too late how important personal growth can make me a better parent, a better person. I got to a point where I had to decide what I needed to do to help me do the best in my job and my personal life. I chose to dive deeper into what my personal cause and effect was. What can I do to live a more wholehearted life? What can I do to be a better person than I was yesterday? I'm not looking to be a better person than anyone else, just a better person than I was yesterday. That the only thing I'm competing against is myself. So this is kind of the two chapters. A lot of the intro chapter is Brene Brown talking about herself and her TED Talks, which if you have not seen her original TED Talk, I recommend going to see it, or not going to see it, but finding it on YouTube, or she did have, I don't know if it's still up, a Netflix special, but she did a TED Talk that she's really kind of famous for, that really kind of shot her up there. And I look yellow, y'all. Anyway, and she talks about how it gave her this huge vulnerability hangover. I have a hard time saying my words sometimes. So it's really a good one to listen to. So she is one of my favorite authors. And if you want to come on this journey with me, come on and let's check things out and see how it goes. Y'all have a great night.